Admitting folks now. Welcome, everybody. We'll give folks just a second to join the audio. It takes a second here. All right. Welcome, everybody, and thanks for joining us on behalf of the Dallas Public Library for this great program. We're going to learn a lot about electric vehicles, and we'll have a chance to do some Q&A and other fun things. I just want to thank you again for coming and give you a couple of housekeeping notes. First of all, you may notice that this program is live. We are live on YouTube, and we are recording this program as well. So if you just keep that in mind as you have your cameras on or off. Secondly, you'll note that as a participant today, your microphones are muted. That's so we can keep the focus on our presenter and the great things they have to share with us. However, we do welcome questions, and we'll relay those at the appropriate time. If you want to ask a question, you can put it in the chat box, and we'll get those relayed. That's pretty much it. So without any further ado, I'll turn it over to Helen, who's going to tell us a little bit about stormwater, I believe.
Thank you so much, Jordan. All right, did I get it right this time? Did I share the right screen?
Looks great.
All right, thank you so much. All right, my name is Helen Dulac. I am with Dallas Environmental Quality and Sustainability, and we are really excited to host this series, Earth Day Every Day, in partnership with the Dallas Public Library. It is on most Thursdays at noon, and I'm going to do a brief little introduction here, and then we're going to get to the good stuff with our presenter. So I just want to give you a little summary about our department because you may have never heard about it before. Back in 2004, we actually started, but back then we were called the Office of Environmental Quality. We worked really hard for 4 years to help Dallas become the first city in the United States to achieve a special environmental certification called ISO 14001. This is an international certification, and we are audited every year. And what we had to do is we looked at our operations across 14 different departments in the city to see how we could still deliver service and lessen our impact on the environment. So we looked at the vehicles we used all the way to the paper we put in our copy machines, and we made changes. And we continue to make changes every year. Now, what's really amazing about this is we're talking about Dallas, Texas, that achieved this first in the United States. It was not a city in California. It was not a city in Colorado. It was not Austin. It was Dallas that made this achievement. So we do have a history of being green, and we just want to go greener. So let's fast forward 10 years where a lot of changes happened to this department. There was a restructuring in the city, and some other environmental programs and operations joined into this department. So for that, we changed our name to Dallas Environmental Quality and Sustainability, and we doubled in size. The same time that happened, our outreach and engagement team was formed, including those new departments that I'm going to talk about in a moment. And I'm a proud member of that team, and so I'm excited for you to be here so that we can engage. In the following year, in 2019, Mayor Eric Johnson set up a special committee of City Council focused just on the environment. And guess what? It's called the Environment and Sustainability Committee. They meet the first Monday of every month, and those sessions are broadcasted live so that you can listen. And it is a great way to hear what the green pulse is of the city. Now, if you have heard of this department, it's probably because on May 27th of last year in 2020, the City Council adopted our Comprehensive Environmental and Climate Action Plan, known as CECAP. It is our 30-year roadmap for how we're going to improve the quality of life for everybody in Dallas and tackle climate change at the same time. You can see all 250 pages of it at dallasclimateaction.com. And even as we do different things like this series, they actually can go to some of the goals in the CECAP, such as with energy and clean air. So I mentioned that there were some changes in 2018 to our department and that we doubled in size. So what you see in green are the new divisions and programs that joined us. And I'm going to talk about one of those just real quickly, and that is stormwater. So stormwater is anytime water travels over a surface and is not absorbed into the ground. So when it rains and there's extra water that runs off your yard, if you leave a hose on and the water goes down your driveway, or if your lawn sprinkler systems are on and that water goes down the sidewalk, that is all storm water. And that water travels across those surfaces down into the street, goes all the way down those gutters to that big drain at the end of the street. That's a storm drain inlet, and it's there for one reason, and that's to remove the water so the streets don't flood. It does such a good job that that water goes directly into a creek or stream. It is not clean, it is not treated. Therefore, if it picks up any litter, any sort of pollution, any bacteria from pet waste, that's how those things end up in our lakes and eventually the Trinity River. And did you know the Trinity River flows all the way to the Gulf of Mexico? So pollution from our homes, from our neighborhoods, from our city can end up in the Gulf of Mexico. So please be mindful about what you're doing outside. Toss your trash, pick up after your pets, fix those leaking vehicles, and so we can keep our waters clean. All right, I mentioned that I'm a member of the Outreach and Engagement team, and we want to empower Dallas to save the earth, and we do that by virtual presentations like this and in person when we're allowed. If you are in Dallas, we can engage with your HOA, different clubs and organizations at no cost. We have a lot of materials for students anywhere from K to college, and we can also participate virtually in different sorts of seminars, activities, and events that you might have. If you invite us to speak, what do we talk about? Well, we can talk about environmental topics from A to Z, all the way from air quality to zero waste. We also host some of our own events. Our most recent was our 26th Waterwise Landscape Tour. You can see the virtual landscape tour at savedallaswater.com. You can see beautiful houses, multiple houses with no grass, zero turf homes. So just think about how much time you're going to save by not having to mow. You won't be putting out any emissions from those gas-powered mowers unless you get an electric mower. And then also you won't have to water. So that's even good there. So check that out, savedallaswater.com. And with that, we also have a website, greendallas.net, that you can visit for more tips. And that's also how you can invite us to participate in your events or speak to your group organization by filling out the event request form at greendallas.net. If you ever have a question for me or any of my coworkers, simply send us an email, greendallas@dallascityhall.com. And also, please follow us on social media. We are Green Dallas TX on Facebook and at Green Dallas on Twitter and Instagram. You can learn about upcoming programs that we have and all sorts of cool things. And not only that, as a thank you for spending your time with us today, we want to offer you a thank you gift. So if you send an email to greendallas@dallascityhall.com, include your name and your mailing address, we will get a gift to you through the mail. And so with that, I want to introduce my coworker, Kevin Overton, who's then going to introduce our speaker.
Thank you, Helen. Appreciate that. I'm Kevin Overton. I work in the field of air quality. If you invite us to come out and speak and you request a topic of air quality, I'm probably the person that you'll get. So part of air quality is getting rid of ozone. And the problem with ozone is that ozone is not emitted directly into the atmosphere. Ozone is caused by a chemical reaction with other pollutants that include oxides of nitrogen and volatile organic compounds. And those are emitted by cars and trucks. Those are the largest sources of the pollutants that cause ozone in North Texas. And North Texas has never been in compliance with the federal standards for ozone. Since those standards were created back in the early 90s, we have always been out of compliance. We've gotten close a couple of times, but then they changed the standard and make it a little bit harder to get to. And we're trying to get there again. Recently, we have missed another deadline this last year, and North Texas will probably go to severe non-attainment in the next year or so. So this is a really important topic for us. Electric vehicles are one of the most promising technologies to help us improve our air quality and get to where we need to be as far as being able to breathe our air without damaging our lungs, without shortening our lives, frankly. So I'm honored today to present Buzz Smith. Buzz is a good friend for the city. He's presented for us a couple of different times on a couple of different occasions. Buzz started his career in oil and gas back in 1976. He worked in the oil field as a a manufacturing engineer and studied engineering by day. In 1985, the oil boom went bust, and those of us of a certain generation in Texas are all very well aware of that. We've all been impacted by that in some way. He moved to DFW as a manufacturing engineer, and within a few years moved into selling and consulting computer software and software for engineers. His life changed on his way to work one day when he was rear-ended on the freeway and his car was totaled. Gasoline was expensive, so he decided to get a plug-in hybrid, and he loved it so much he started a blog called My Electric Journey. A year later, his car dealership hired him to sell cars focusing on plug-in vehicles. For the next 6 years, Buzz was the #1 plug-in hybrid vehicle salesperson in the entire state of Texas, with 35% of his sales being plug-ins. During this time, he became a board member and a director of dealer outreach with the Texas Electric Transportation Resources Alliance, TexEtra. In January 2020, Buzz retired from the world of auto sales and began focusing on EV evangelizing and spreading the word and the good news of electric vehicles anywhere he can. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Buzz and go ahead, take it away and get started.
All right. Good morning, everybody. I'm Buzz Smith, the EV Evangelist, and I'm here to spread the great news of electric vehicles with you guys. We'll start out with a real quick slideshow. We'll do some talking and then take some questions. So are you seeing the slideshow, guys?
Not yet.
Fantastic. Most people don't realize this, but even an average car, not a big truck, but an average car in the United States driving just under 12,000 miles a year will generate 5.18 tons of carbon dioxide.
Buzz,
Now,
I'm sorry.
Hey,
I'm
Buzz,
sorry.
we're not seeing the slides yet.
We're not seeing it yet.
All righty.
Sorry about that.
Let me jump in there. How about now?
We've got it now.
Now we got it, Buzz.
Okay. So again, just an average car, 5.18 tons of carbon dioxide every year. And that's just carbon dioxide, not all the other compounds that Kevin was talking about a minute ago. That's the weight of almost 2 Chevy Suburbans, just to put it into context that you can understand. Now, the really cool thing is there is a revolution going on right now in transportation. And, everybody knows about Tesla, but guess what? There's a ton of other companies, including major manufacturers like General Motors, Kia, Hyundai, Ford, that are jumping in big time into the electric market. And it's a pretty exciting time. Now, people are always reading that electric cars will become viable in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. But that's just not the case. Change can happen very quickly. How quickly? Well, this photograph on the left is showing a traffic jam in New York City on Easter morning of 1900. And there's only one automobile. The rest of it is all horse and buggies. On the right-hand side, it's the same Easter morning 3 years later, and there aren't any horse and buggies. It's all cars. And this happened very quickly. And I know you probably don't believe this, but this tipping point is here. And it's going to happen with vehicles just as fast moving to electricity. In fact, in 2020, more than 50% actually, of all new vehicles purchased in Norway were electric. 74% of all the vehicles on the road in Norway right now are plug-in vehicles, both plug-in hybrids and battery electric vehicles. Some of the ones to get excited about right now, you can go out and buy a Chevy Bolt EV, a Hyundai Kona EV, a Kia Niro EV, if you like the crossover form factor. And those vehicles all have over 200 miles of range per charge. Now, Americans, we think we drive further than we actually do. Most of us, buy cars because we think we're going to drive to California for vacation. And what I try to get people to understand is for your daily commute, even some of the used vehicles out there that are very inexpensive, that have, say, 100 miles of range, are perfectly suitable for that. And most families in the United States, or the average family, is about 1.8 cars per family. So most families out there have 2 or more cars. Well, one of your cars that's strictly being used for commuting can be electric today, and you get all the benefits, not only to the environment, to your own lifestyle that will amaze you. Now, the big news for Texas, though, is in the next year or two, you're going to start seeing pickup trucks. General Motors announced the Hummer is coming out. Ford has announced they're going to make an electric F-150. Just earlier this month, Lordstown Motor had their pickup truck, the Endurance, right here in Dallas, so you could have checked that out. Tesla is building the Cybertruck factory in Austin, Texas. So those pickups will be made here. Now, when I was selling automobiles before my retirement last January, 60% of everything that I sold was either a truck or an SUV. And it's important for the electric vehicle market that full-size trucks with their towing capacity and SUVs come to the market, and it's happening right now. In fact, a full-size SUV is available now. It's the Kia e-tron, or excuse me, Audi e-tron, and it's a big, SUV similar to, say, a Chevy Tahoe. And here in Texas, there is a better way to go. And it's happening right now, as I said, and we've already got the wind energy out there. We're installing solar power plants right now. That's my Volt in the foreground there. I've had 6 of those in our family so far. We've leased 3 of them. We've bought 3 of them. And I can tell you right now, this family is never going back to a car that's powered primarily off of electricity. So I'm going to stop the share. You should be seeing me now. And let's talk about electric vehicles a little bit. There are some challenges for us as a nation, as a state, on how are we going to repair our roads, and everybody's worried about the switch to electricity. Well, gasoline vehicles have been getting more and more efficient, and because of that, if you buy less gasoline, you pay less taxes, which go to fix our roads. So that's one of the things government is going to have to figure out. Diesel has been falling out of favor for some time. You may have heard about the Volkswagen Dieselgate scandal. In the world of heavy duty trucks, yeah, diesel is still the preferred way to go. But all of the sports sedans that did diesel, they're just dropping like flies. That's going away. And the really cool thing about electric vehicles is they're the only vehicle gets cleaner the longer you own it. And you buy a gasoline car, the piston rings start to wear, after a while that you'll see smoke coming out of the back of that car. But electric cars get cleaner and cleaner, and the reason for that is their power source gets cleaner and cleaner. So as Texas makes the move to renewable energy, and by the way, we're the #1 state in wind generated electricity right now, the electricity you're putting into your car comes from a cleaner and cleaner source, making your car a cleaner and cleaner source. Now, everybody talks about range anxiety. They're worried about, being stranded at the side of the road. And with 200 miles of range, for most people, this is not going to be an issue anymore. My daily commute was 32 miles, and I was able to do that every day in a plug-in hybrid vehicle. And it had 53 miles of range. So even though I could run on gasoline, that car was 100% electric for me, unless I needed to make a long road trip. Now, I've driven it to Colorado and back, and yes, I ran on gasoline there, but my next car will be 100% electric because I know that 99% of the time I'm staying right here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. And with the new cars coming out that all have over 200 miles of range, that's going to be everything I need. And I'm getting the dollar equivalent of over 100 miles per gallon, meaning that I can take that savings on gasoline every month and sock that way for if I do want to take a long driving vacation, I'll just rent a big SUV for that trip. And the rest of the year, I'm driving a zero emission vehicle. If you've been worried about range anxiety, you can do what I did. Instead of getting a full battery electric vehicle as your first step into this world, consider a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. Now, when we think of hybrid vehicles, most people think of the original Prius. And the Prius is a gasoline engine and a battery. And the gasoline engine charges the battery when it's running on gasoline. And then at times, at low speeds, it would run on electricity. And the idea there was that at low speeds, electricity was more efficient. At the higher speeds, gasoline was more efficient, and they would just be as efficient as possible. The brilliant thing that happened, though, was when the idea of a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle came along. That vehicle will stay electric no matter how fast you're going until it runs out of electricity. And then it seamlessly automatically switches to electricity or to gasoline. And when the gasoline engine's running, primarily it's running as a generator to not recharge the battery, but to supply electricity to the electric drive system. So you don't have to worry about range anxiety. You can stop at a gas station just like you're doing now and fill that car up. But the cool thing is, it's a great first step into the world of electric vehicles. And what shocked me was in 2017, I went 11 months without going to a gas station at all. One tank of gas, 9 gallons, lasted me 11 months. And in fact, at the end of the 11 months, I still had a half tank of gas, but the car was smart enough to realize that the gas was probably getting old. And so it went into what's called fuel maintenance mode, where it makes you burn gasoline until you dilute the old gas with fresh new gas. Then it lets you have electricity again. So think of a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle as training wheels for getting into the electric vehicle world. Most days, your car will be a fully electric vehicle, but for long trips and for peace of mind for newbies, it's a great way to take a step into that world. An example of one out there right now, there's the plug-in Prius called the Prius Prime, the Honda Clarity, which was based on the Chevy Volt design. GM and hybrid worked together. The Chevy Volt is no longer in production, but if you can find them on the used market, they're fantastic cars. And like most electric vehicles, the battery pack, electric drivetrain, the charging system is warranted for 8 years, 100,000 miles, and that transfers even when you buy a used one. If you have a bigger family and you think you need a 3-row vehicle, the Chrysler Pacifica is a plug-in hybrid that is a 3-row minivan. Now, in the world of fully battery electric vehicles, no gas engine backup or anything like that, battery prices now have fallen below $100 a kilowatt hour. Well, that's always been said to be the tipping point. That's when electric cars and gasoline cars are at parity. That neither one of them is more expensive or cheaper, but the electric vehicle saves you so much on fuel and so much on maintenance that it'll become an obvious thing. And most people, think about electric vehicles in terms of, like we're discussing today, the environment or about fuel economy. But let me tell you what really sells electric vehicles, and that's going and sitting in one and driving it. When you punch that accelerator to the floor, you are going to take off the line faster than just about any other vehicle you've ever driven in your life. Driving an electric vehicle is not like having to eat your vegetables. It is good for you, like eating your vegetables, but it's a blast to do at the same time. And there are new and traditional manufacturers that are coming out with these. Tesla was a brand new company, and now they're dominating the electric vehicle market. But you have General Motors, Ford, Kia, Hyundai, on and on. You can see traditional manufacturers are seeing what Tesla's doing. They're kind of threatened by what Tesla is doing, and so they're jumping on the bandwagon too. But you have tons of new companies like the pickups I mentioned earlier, Lordstown, Bollinger. Those guys are coming into the world as brand new manufacturing companies, and some of them are going to be very successful. Now, you may not realize this, but there is no oil in an electric car. You do not change the oil. So there's almost no maintenance on these cars. There's no spark plugs. There's no transmission fluid. As I mentioned, there's no oil or oil filters. In fact, the electric vehicle that I used to sell, the scheduled maintenance was basically rotating the wheels every 7,500 miles until you hit 150,000 miles. And at that point, you change the battery coolant. Well, is that some liquid dilithium crystal thing that's super expensive? No, it's antifreeze. So it's actually a very easy thing to do and very inexpensive. So you save not only on the fuel that you're using, but you're going to save on the maintenance. And as I mentioned earlier, there are used electric vehicles out there. Now, some of them were early electric vehicles that had about 80 to 90 miles of range per charge. That is still fine for the average commute. In fact, in the United States, over 80% of us commute less than 40 miles a day. So you would still get home with half your battery capacity. And just like your smartphone, you can plug it into a 110 outlet. And if your commute is 40 to 50 miles a day, you wake up to a full tank the next day. There's just There's no reason to ever go to a gas station. There's no maintenance, and you just fill it up at home with a regular 110 outlet. Now, if you want to charge faster, you can actually put what's called a level 2 charger in your home, and you plug those into a 220 volt outlet, similar to an electric dryer. And that will charge much faster. You're going to get about 25 miles of range for each hour you're plugged in on most of these vehicles, and 100% electric vehicles especially. And there are federal and state incentives. Now, Texas incentive has expired, but the legislature is working on bringing it back. But your federal income tax can be cut up to $7,500. And that's not a $7,500 deduction. That's a $7,500 tax credit, meaning it comes right off your taxes. So that is a huge deal. You're talking about when Texas had its $2,500 rebate between state and federal incentives, that was $10,000 available to reduce the price of getting a brand new vehicle. And there is still a federal income tax credit for installing a level 2 charger at your house that's up to 30% of the cost of the installation. And that includes having an electrician put in a new 220 outlet if you need that done, and up to $1,000. So that really reduces the price of putting in faster charging if you need that at all. But again, most people, if you're driving 40 miles a day, you can do just fine on the 110 outlet. Now, out in the world, when you're traveling across country, you need to charge faster than you can ever do at home. You need something faster than the level 2 charger, and that's called level 3 or DC fast charging. And believe it or not, there are tons of them out there. I charged in Austin, Texas, and there was a bank of 12 chargers there that, it's like going to a Buc-ee's. There's, all those gas pumps at a Buc-ee's. This was the equivalent of that in the electric vehicle world. And you've got charging speeds starting around 50 kilowatts, which would put about 25, and this is just level 2, 25 miles of range per hour into the car. Oh, no, excuse me. 50 kilowatts is about 25 miles of range per hour that you're plugged in, but they go up to 350 kilowatts if your car can support that. And so you can get 80% of the range of that car filled up in about 10 to 30 minutes. So it becomes much more like stopping at a gas station. And a lot of times these chargers are right next to shopping centers. They're right next to restaurants. And so when you're traveling cross country, plan your meal stop where there's a charger. You plug in your car, you go into the restaurant, you come out, you're charged, you're ready to go. So that's the world of electric vehicles. If you guys could turn off the slideshow, if you haven't already, we can start talking about questions. Who's got some questions out there?
Yeah, we see. Sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
Okay, well, we've got a few questions that have come in.
Okay.
I'm gonna turn my video on just in case. First question is, what are some of the larger EV or hybrid vehicles in the market? My son and daughter-in-law love EVs, but they have 4 kids all in car seats. So for someone with a growing family like that, what would be what are some of the options as far as EV or hybrid or plug-in hybrid?
Well, out on the market today, the main choices are going to be the Chrysler Pacifica minivan, which is a 3-row minivan. And I've talked to owners of these. They're very happy with them. They're excellent vehicles. The Audi e-tron SUV that I mentioned earlier is a very large SUV, but it's more like a Tahoe. So it's going to be limited to probably 5 passengers. For a 6-person family, those right now are what's available, but there are more SUVs coming. In fact, General Motors has said they're going to produce a full-size SUV, but for families larger than 5 people, if they all need to drive together in one vehicle, right now, those are the 2 choices that I'm aware of, but there are things coming within the next, say, 3 to 4 years that'll address that market. Now, again, most of the time, though, the family's not driving all in one vehicle. And if the family has 2 vehicles, they can make that change to electric today for one of their vehicles and then keep that gasoline big SUV for hauling the whole family around when they're going places together. What we don't need to see anymore is that 3-row SUV going down the road commuting to work with just one driver in it and no one else.
Okay. Next question, and this kind of hits home to me as well. Although I have a gas hybrid Prius and I love it, but I am interested in an electric truck that can tow a small trailer, nothing big. And just from a personal standpoint, my wife and I, about a year and a half ago, purchased a small RV, about 3,000 pounds, and we tow it with a Toyota Tacoma. We don't really want a F-250 to tow such a small trailer, but I mean, I would love to replace that with something more environmentally friendly and a lot cheaper. When you tow a trailer with that Toyota Tacoma, the gas mileage drops down to about 10 or 11 miles per gallon. So it gets kind of expensive to go on a trip with it.
On the market today, there aren't any pickups, but like I showed in the slide earlier, there are a bunch of them about to hit the market. The Tesla Cybertruck is interesting in that it will start at $40,000. And so after the federal tax incentive, you're talking about a truck in the 32.5 range. And this is a crew cab pickup, seats a family of 5. It'll tow a lot of weight. Now, just like any vehicle, just like you mentioned, you tow a trailer, it's going to affect your range. And I went on a trip to prove that the Bolt EV from Chevrolet could be used as a vacation vehicle, kind of an adventure vehicle. So we had a kayak on the roof. We had 2 bicycles hanging off the back. And behind the front seats, we completely filled the car with camping gear. And my range went from a predicted 259 miles down to 180 miles because of the wind resistance of all those things. So it is going to affect your range. You are going to stop for charging more often. So it does become critical when you're shopping for an electric vehicle, especially one that you're going to take long trips in, or that you're going to tow things, that you make sure, if it's an option, that you get the DC fast charging option as part of that vehicle so that you can stop and charge very quickly when you're on a road trip or when you're towing.
Okay.
Oh,
Next
by the
question.
way, Tesla has already announced that they are going to make a smaller version of the Cybertruck. They haven't unveiled it or anything, but knowing Tesla, this is something that's going to come along the line. So if you do like the smaller truck form factor, at least Tesla for sure is going to do that. Now, right now, batteries are big enough that most of the trucks will be full-size crew cabs, but there will be smaller trucks in the future, probably 5 years out would be my estimate.
Yeah, I could live with that. I could, if it was an electric truck, I could probably live with a full size one. But it would erase some of the guilt, I think. Here's another one. This person says, I have 2 hybrids, a Mariner and an MKZ, and expect the next vehicle to be a plug-in hybrid. But from an economic sense, doesn't a home charger cost offset any of the other cost savings associated with an electric vehicle?
Actually, back in 2012, when I got my first Volt, I wondered about that, and I did the math. And within a year, you're going to easily recoup that cost of the charger, even if you have to install a new 220 outlet, a new circuit and everything. So the chargers themselves, I've seen them as low as $200. Now that's a very plain Jane. It's like plugging your phone in. It's not monitoring anything. It's not sending you any messages over Wi-Fi or anything like that. But for most people, that's all they need. They just need to plug in their car. So you can get them starting around $200. You can easily spend $700 if you want all the bells and whistles. But it's really cost effective to do it. Especially think about it. If you're driving a truck today, you're probably spending, even at today's low gas prices, $200 a month. Well, that means your gas savings in 1 month paid for the charger. And depending, on where your circuit breaker box is compared to where you want to plug in and charge your car, you may spend the next 4 or 5 months paying off the electrician bill. And this is not counting that you're going to get money back from the government off of your income tax for doing this. So it actually is going to be faster, but that might be 4 or 5 months to pay that down. And then from then on, you're benefiting probably $175 a month saving in gasoline compared to driving a gasoline powered vehicle that's $200 a month in gasoline.
All right. If you know nothing about, well, okay, let me back up a second. Are there any federal tax credits or incentive programs to purchase an EV or hybrid? I know there have been some in the past. Are there any on the market currently?
Absolutely. The federal income tax credit is still in effect for all manufacturers except for Tesla and General Motors. They hit the 200,000 vehicle limit each. And so they started phasing out the tax credit for those two companies. And they've now gotten to the point that there's zero tax credit. Now, they're not stupid companies. Now, Tesla's in high demand, so you're still paying full list for that vehicle. But in the case of, say, the Chevrolet Bolt EV, they have been running discounts from the manufacturer averaging over the $7,500 federal income tax credit. And that's actually better for this reason. If you're depending on the $7,500 federal income tax to bring down the price of that car, you don't get that money till you've already bought the car. So that means you have to qualify for a loan for a car that's $7,500 more than what you're really going to be ending up spending once you get that tax credit back. If you get that as a point of sale, which currently you do with General Motors, then you don't have that extra step, and have to qualify for the higher payment every month for that car. You can get into it much easier and not have to file any paperwork with the government to get that. Now, the Biden administration is currently considering taking that $200,000 or 200,000 vehicle cap off, which would return Tesla and General Motors to the list of companies that do qualify for the full 7,500. There is a link on my blog, and my blog is theev-angelus.com. If you scroll down the right side, there's a set of government links, and one of those will take you to the government website, the Alternative Energy website, that will tell you what the income tax credit is, because it's based on battery size, and vehicles with a smaller battery size get a smaller tax credit. But the vast majority of electric vehicles get the full 7,500, but it will show you all vehicles out there on the market today that qualify for a federal income tax credit and how much that credit is. Now, this is new vehicles only at this time, not used vehicles. But when that vehicle sells on the used car market, you didn't pay full price for that car. And so it gave electric vehicles kind of a bad reputation for depreciating very quickly. Well, that was depreciating from full MSRP, not on the price after you got all the government money. So they sold at a lower price on the used market. And that's a great place. Yeah, you're not going to get the 7,500, but you're effectively getting the discount of the 7,500 when you pick up one on the used market.
All right, Buzz, I'm going to combine a couple of questions here.
Okay.
One of them says, are there any luxury or sports car or convertible models out there are being planned? And another one says, hey, Buzz, if I wanted a really great handling EV, which model should I look at? Now, I know the person who posted the second question, and I know that I happen to know that he is a Mustang fanatic. So I'm betting he's wanting to get your opinion on the new EV Mustang.
Actually, my opinion of the new EV Mustang is very high. I think, I've never owned a pickup in my life. I'm not a pickup guy. I've been waiting for the sports cars that I could afford. The Mustang is a great one. They're just starting to arrive at the dealerships now. Most of them, have already got deposits on them as they come in. But, within 6 months, they'll probably have some sitting in the showroom where you can just buy it off the showroom. But guess what? Almost all the EVs out there, because the battery packs are underneath the car and weigh about 1,000 pounds, lowers the center of gravity of those cars, that even the ones you don't think of as sports cars have incredible handling in corners. I mean, the cars don't even lean like you normally get in a gasoline car because of that low center of gravity. And because an electric motor generates 100% of its torque starting at 0 RPM, the acceleration off the line, even on what is considered an economy car, like a Nissan Leaf or a Chevy Bolt EV, the acceleration off the line is exhilarating and a little bit scary if you're not used to it. Now, as far as convertibles have a lot more wind drag. So companies, especially the ones that are just getting into the electric world, are kind of shying away from that. But The Porsche Taycan is out there. As far as plug-in hybrids go, the BMW i8 I've heard is being discontinued, but that was a really cool looking sports car with great handling. I mentioned the Porsche Taycan, but those are at higher price points, much higher price points. That Mustang, if I remember correctly, they start at around $45,000. And so if the Texas $2,500 rebate comes out, you're really starting at about $35,000. And a lot of people today are buying $35,000 cars. And if you like sportiness, go check out that Mustang. I think that is going to be the car that gets a lot of people into the electric world.
I think we were all kind of made aware of the EV sports car a couple of years ago when Elon Musk launched his I don't remember the little Tesla sports car into space. Yeah, he launched one into space. I thought that was kind of cool. But
the very first Tesla Roadster, which is no longer in production, was based on the Lotus Elise body and frame. And those things were incredibly fast off the line. Now that new one, but they were about $100,000, way out of Buzz's price range.
That
new Roadster, if I remember the numbers correctly, starts at over $200,000, but 0 to 60 is under 3 seconds, and that is scary fast.
Yeah. Here's a question from another family-oriented person. They want to know if the Toyota Highlander EV is available in a 7-seat.
Not that I'm aware of.
The hybrid.
Yeah,
the Highlander hybrid. Sorry.
We actually had one back in 2006. I do not believe there's any 3-row version of that yet. It's still a 2-row SUV.
Okay. Now here's a more serious question or another question related to charging. How expensive is it to charge at a public charging station compared to charging at home?
A lot of times it's free. So if you find a level 2 charger, which again, will put about 25 miles of range in for each hour you're plugged in, you'll find those at restaurants, at movie theaters. Many of those, the host for the charger put in to attract you to their business. Now, for each hour that you're plugged in, it's costing them pennies. I mean, it's maybe 70 cents. So they're giving that away. Like Whole Foods, you go to a Whole Foods, there's 2 level 2 chargers in front of almost any Whole Foods store, and they don't charge you to use those. Now, DC fast charging, yeah, the charger is much more expensive. The electricity is flowing at a much higher rate. So they do charge for that. And it's in Texas, because of current laws, they can't sell the electricity by the kilowatt hour. So they charge you by how long you're connected and at what speed it can supply electricity to the car. That road trip I took around Texas, we were charging at about 14 cents per hour, and it was taking us about an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes to get 80% of the battery full, which was more than enough for us to continue on our way. And so let's see, 14 cents a minute times 60, that's $1.40. We were spending about maybe $14 per stop, and that would give us about 200 miles of range.
There's another question sort of associated with that. Does charging at home have a significant impact on your monthly utility bill?
For us, with the normal daily commute, we were getting about $1 a day. So we went from spending, we were spending $30 a week on gasoline, $120 a month, and that dropped to $30 a month per car.
That's amazing. Are you aware of any navigation services like Google Maps or Waze that have charging stations loaded on them for road trips like you took?
Absolutely. In the General Motors world, they've added that to the My Chevrolet app, which in the Chevy Bolt EV is able to display it on the screen of the car through Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. In fact, a lot of cars today have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And so navigation systems that are built into the cars are becoming less and less important. And I expect them to go away within the next 5 years to be replaced by navigation from your smartphone being displayed on what would have been the navigation display of the car. Now there's also, PlugShare, I believe, has an app that will display on your car. But more and more of this is being migrated. And in fact, Apple just recently announced that Apple CarPlay will start showing where the chargers are as you're driving down the road. And you'd be able to ask Siri just out loud, I need driving directions to the nearest EV charger, and it would route you right to it.
While we're on the subject of chargers, I want to put in a couple of shameless plugs here. The city of Dallas has two charging stations. I believe they are level 2 chargers in front of City Hall in the Horseshoe parking at City Hall, and they are not exactly free, but you're not paying for the electricity. You pay for the parking, just like you were paying a parking meter. So it's incredibly cheap. Also, I believe in the underground parking garage at the library, the central library, there also is one charging station there, and I believe it is free. So the city of Dallas is a player in that game. We also have oh gosh, dozens of charging stations at Love Field. Now, I believe you do have to have a credit card and you pay for those. We also have various other facilities around the city that have charging stations that are mostly from one of the commercial services, so that you have to pay for those. And we are looking at adding a lot more charging stations to city facilities to encourage electric vehicles. Let me go on to a couple
Actually,
more
one
questions.
thing I'd like to throw out on that, something they've done in England, which is just amazing to me, is they've started putting 110 outlets on the streetlight poles.
Oh, wow.
So that people driving electric vehicles that maybe don't have a garage or live in an apartment complex can just pull up and plug into the 110 outlet. Then that's only going to put about 4 miles of hour per range. But let's say your daily commute is 40 miles, then that means in your 8-hour workday, you've gotten back 32 of those miles of range. So you could, maybe only once a week plug into a DC fast charger, and the whole society shares in the cost of those people plugging into those, because it's just pennies to do it that way. They're all sharing the cost of this because, as you mentioned, the Dallas County has never been in compliance on the air pollution standards. It's in all of our best interests to breathe clean air. And so, yeah, I mean, if it's going to cost me a penny a day for my share for people to be able to plug in for free out there, I've got absolutely no problem with that. I had asthma as a kid growing up, so I want clean air.
Yeah. Here's a kind of a fascinating comment and anecdote, and I guess a question as well. My friends have a new Tesla SUV, and they drove up from Houston. They slept in their car in my driveway and were able to keep the internal temperature warm all night long and still have plenty of battery. They are turning their SUV into a mini camper, similar to what Buzz said about a vacation vehicle. And the question part of that is, are all EVs this versatile?
There are some that will turn off automatically after, say, 10 minutes or something, but most of them, if you have them plugged into a level 2 charger, will let you, keep the cabin comfortable. It'd be great for camping. A lot of KOA campgrounds have 50 amp
Yes, absolutely,
for RVs to plug in. Well, it'd be just as easy for you to take a portable level 2 charger and plug that in and keep your EV running overnight. Now, some really cool developments in that world. They're going to have to work on the Tesla a little bit to turn it into a camper. But there's a company called Canoo, and their website is GOEV, so goev.com. And you can sign up now to get a completely autonomous self-driving subscription vehicle from them, meaning that you don't park it in your driveway anymore. So as autonomy is coming online, and we've all heard about the self-driving Teslas and all that, the new Chevy Bolt EUV and the Cadillac that's coming out will have General Motors Super Cruise, which on certain highways is completely autonomous driving, but you need to be in the front seat in case you need to take over. But there's another company called Cruise AV for autonomous vehicle that a person doesn't have to be in the car. So in the very near future, you will summon your Uber ride or your Lyft ride, and there won't be a driver. And so, one, all the people that are doing that as a side gig need to start figuring out what they're going to do when this happens, because this is going to happen, but it's going to change the way people own cars. They won't buy them anymore. They'll subscribe to them. And there's a great book on this called Autonomy. If you get a chance to read it, I was completely against the idea of sharing cars with other people like this. But they found out even in a city as large as New York City, a relatively small number of these autonomous vehicles are needed for you to be able to say, oh, I need to run to the store. You press a button on your smartphone, and within 5 minutes, the car is sitting there waiting for you to get in and go. And then you just tell the car where you want to go. It drives you there. My mom is 80 years old. She's losing her vision. She can't drive anymore, and she has to depend on other people to get her to the grocery store. When these cars come out, you'll just summon it, get in it, say, I need to go to the grocery store, and it takes you there. And the cool thing about subscriptions and autonomous driving is, let's say, like we were talking about earlier, you want to go on vacation. Well, that month you can say, you know what, this month I want an electric SUV as my subscription, but next month I'm just commuting. So all I need is a 2-seat car that gets much better range. And you're able to have that flexibility. 92% of the time in the gasoline car world, your car is sitting in the garage or on the driveway, or it's sitting in a parking lot. It is not being used. The price models that I've seen for subscription autonomous vehicles is that you will spend 1/10 of what you're spending today for maintenance, fuel, the car, and insurance.
Okay. There's another comment here from Helen that there is a charger at the Perot Museum. Not sure if it's level or if it's free, but if you have an EV, you get to park. You get free parking, and you get to park next to the in the lot next to the building instead of having to walk from under the bridge. So there's a lot of good deals out there with parking for our charging for SUV, or I'm sorry, EVs, excuse me. Have a couple of more Mustang comments here. One is I really like the Mustang Mach-E 1400. When do you see a time when the aftermarket industry will have affordable options to make modifications to your EV? I've never thought of that, but I mean, there's a lot of people out there that like to do things to make their cars go faster and handle better. And can that be done with an EV?
It can be done. It'll probably void the warranty. Right now, that industry is young enough that the manufacturers really want to keep control over the vehicle. They don't want you tweaking things. Some people are putting on different size wheels and tires, things like that. But things like, in the gasoline world, we think of putting in a new chipset or something. There are people out there right now that are offering software hacks on some of we'll say the Chevy Volt. I've seen that there's a software hack out there for that to increase performance. You just have to realize, if you modify that software, you may void the warranty of the car. And the other thing is, the new cars that are coming along update the software over the air like the Teslas do. So I don't know if you really want to be modifying software and have the manufacturer maybe make a change that doesn't know about the modification you've made. That seems like that might be a safety factor. So I think in the early years of this industry, that's going to be something that there'll be some like pirate type people out there doing that. But I want everybody to think clearly to themselves, do I really want to make changes like that? Especially if you've got a manufacturer that's doing over the air updates. You really want to make sure that whatever hack you've done is not going to put you in a dangerous situation.
Mm-hmm. Here's another interesting thread that I'm looking at. Someone said I was really interested in converting an older Mustang into an EV a few years ago. I even bought a 89 model roller, which means not really running, but right, you can move it around. But looking through Auto Trader, I can pick up a used Leaf for around $8,000. Is there a strong interest in that community, the people, the hot rodders or people that like to work on cars, in doing conversions of cars to electric vehicles? And are people harvesting parts from wrecked EVs for their conversions?
Absolutely to both questions. But typically when a conversion happens, you're putting in brand new battery packs, brand new controllers, and there is a hobbyist market for that out there. A great place where I learned about this is right here in Dallas. Is the North Texas Electric Automobile Association. And you can find their website, nteaa.org. And back when I got my 2012 Volt, I attended some of their meetings, and all these guys, these hobbyists were getting together and they were building level 2 chargers from scratch using chipsets that were available on the market. They were taking older cars and modifying them. Now, I have wanted a 2-seat electric convertible. I can't afford a $200,000 Tesla Roadster. I had a Triumph TR6, but the Mazda Miata has this perfect 50-50 weight balance, which is great for sports car driving, and it's a nice 2-seat Roadster convertible form factor. And the problem becomes it's just so expensive to do that it's actually cheaper to go buy a brand new one that's got a warranty from the manufacturer and has been tested for safety, has the battery cooled by a radiator with antifreeze in it, so the battery life is going to be a lot longer than an air-cooled battery. But there was a market for it. Now, there was a shop, I believe it was in Austin, Texas, that was doing conversions, and they got completely out of the business because the cost was so high, the market was too small. I think the same thing happened to one in Colorado. Out in California, I think they're still doing things like that. So if there is this, beloved car from your youth, there are places you can go to get that done for you. If you're a hobbyist and want to learn about it, I definitely recommend talk to NTEAA to get some education. And last January, I went down to Austin to work with Texetra. We were at a show called, I'm having a senior moment, but it's a British show about electric vehicles and fully charged live. And for the very first time, they were coming to do a live show in the United States. And they did it in Austin. And the rumor is they're going to do it again at some point this year once, COVID goes away. And there was a company there that supplied battery packs, electric motors and things like that, so that hobbyists could take an older car and turn it into an electric vehicle. So that market maybe now is starting to come back, and it may be more cost effective. And they had several examples of older cars that they had updated that were really cool.
Just for everyone's information, I have put in the chat the website for the NTEAA. And also, if you scroll up in the chat, there's a couple of places in the chat where all of Buzz's information is there. His email and his phone number, and I believe his blog, the My Electric Journey. So that's I think that's most of the questions that we've had. And I think we're sort of right up at about our time, are we not, Jordan?
We've got a couple of minutes if there's anything last that we want to take care of.
So just in conclusion, from my standpoint, and before I turn it over to Buzz for his final comments, I really appreciate all the questions and everything. There's actually a lot of interesting questions that we've had today that I have not seen before. If anybody has any other questions, you can email them to me or to Helen or to Jordan, and we will get those or post them on Green Dallas, and we will get Buzz to follow up on those questions to answer them. And I'd like to thank everybody for coming, and I'm going to turn it back over to Buzz and let him make any final comments that he has.
Well, I do have one, and it's something that I've really been thinking about a lot lately. I can't remember if we talked about this here, but we did before the show started. And in the oil collapse of 1985, it was horrendous for Houston. A 2-story house down the street from me sold for a price so low at auction that the guy put it on his credit card. This is a huge disruption that's coming to the automotive and oil industry. And there's a tendency, especially among us that are very environmentally conscious, to judge people that are working in the oil industry. And what I want you to realize is for over a century, they powered the development of this country. And we would not be who we are without the power that oil gave us during this time. Now, yes, that time is coming to an end. And what we want to do is, we do want to counsel our friends that are still into that industry and just ask them, have you got a plan for if demand for oil drops off, the edge of the table? Are you currently studying something so you can move into a different industry? And there are jobs in wind farm development, in solar farm development, in infrastructure construction that is going to hire tons of people. But yes, there were corporations that knew back in the 70s that global climate change was real and they hid it from us. The employees of those companies did not know this. I worked in oil and gas for 10 years and I was very proud of the stuff we did. Some of our connectors were used in nuclear submarines. They were used in the space shuttle. And I was rightfully proud of what we did. We created wells that could handle 40,000 PSI. But the world we're in now and what we now understand to be the environmental impact means we do need to move away from oil. But, let's do this hand in hand with the people that are in that industry. If it comes up on a referendum and the government starts asking, do we want to have government assistance to help these people get education to get into another career? Please vote for that. We're not here to crush Americans that helped build this country. We really want those people to come through this well.
An
Great,
excellent
thanks
point,
so much.
Buzz. There's, I think, I cannot tell you how many people I know who have all been victims of the boom and bust cycle of the petroleum industry. There's a lot of good people that work in the environmental industry today that started out in the oil and gas industry, and during one of the bust cycles made the switch over to environmental to put bread on the table. So thank you, Jordan, all yours.
No, I was just going to say thank you so much, Buzz, and thank you, Kevin and Helen, for joining us.
Had a great time.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.